Hi, welcome to ADC Live. I'm Misha Zubrov here with Ivo. We're here to discuss a very interesting topic, very popular topic about effective enterprise community engagement practices with Randy Bell. Randy's a very special speaker. He's going to speak a little bit later, but we have a very busy agenda that I want to dive right in. And first, we want to just brief overview about ADC, who we are. So we are a Lumap's partner, and we really come from Luan's background, Ivo and myself, from different areas, from customer experience to backend engineering and search and AI. We work with customers to really solve their problems, still partner with them on different areas, whether it's strategic, whether it's experience design, whether it's integration engineering. And really the goal is for us to make it a very simple, a clean experience so that it's very seamless for your employees. And just as a fun fact, we have over 30 extensions and counting in the Lumas marketplace. Those of you who don't know what extensions are, really they're extended product. Just a lot of other tools like Slack, Zoom, etc. They have marketplace and partners developing. So too we do as well. So we have over 30 extensions. There's something that you need or will need. It might be here or it will be here at some point. And also Lumaps. Who is Lumaps? For those of you who are not familiar with what Lumaps is an employee experience platform that's there to connect employees within the enterprise ecosystem, both digitally through desktop and mobile, and they're really to kind of connect the culture and to bring connectivity to the workplace through top-down, bottom-up communications. And this is the product that we've worked with and support for the past 5 years as partners. So first, I want to go right into our pro tip of the day. And this is, I think, is something very interesting. So basically, Lumas has something called a personal feed. And the way it works is you can see what you're following, your activity based on things, your interests, based on communities or spaces you're following, based on users you're following, or even based on content streams that you're part of, right? So generally speaking, a personal feed is kind of stuck somewhere between under your profile, and it's a little bit of a process to find it, 2 clicks or so to get to it. And this is essentially where the personal feed is right here. Not a lot of people know about it, but it does have a lot of value. So I'll show you a quick tip of how to take this and put it in the main navigation. This way, when folks log in immediately and they want to catch up, they haven't been, they've been logged over for a week or a couple of weeks or a couple of days. They want to see what's been, who's created latest content or what's the latest activity in their community. They can easily go in and find the personal feed on top navigation. Simply go into main nav, add the navigation here, personal feed, and let's say you can add a custom slug. I'll do my feed. This way it's clear this for me. You can add other features here as well. You can add an icon. You can do a bunch of other personalize the visibility, who can see it. But I'm just going to keep it simple for now. I'll do add. Once it's added, let's say it's all the way at the bottom, so at the end of my main nav, then I'll do save. And let me just go back to this page. I will refresh. And once the page refreshes, you will see the personal feed, my feed, directly here in the main navigation. And once I click it, you'll see that it's going to appear. And I will be able to see the pending loading times. Here it is. I can click into it, and then I can see all the activity that my users on my platform were doing, what questions they've asked in communities, and blogs, and contents, what documentation they've created, which communities I'm following. And if there's something I need to follow, it'll tell me here I'm already following everything I need to follow. So, but if there wasn't, for example, here, if I go to the Hive, I have my feed here, and here add to your feed, that gives me some options of things I should follow based on, again, what my interests are, based on what content streams I'm part of. What are content streams? That's a different discussion. We'll come back to it a little bit later, but this is just a general idea about what a feed is. Good quick tip for anybody who wants to get a little more engagement from users, and to an easy way for users to know to kind of have an ability to catch up on things that they were out for a little bit. So then the next section is what we're excited about, and today, what I wanted to discuss was a new way to have surveys within Lumaps. So Lumaps, traditionally, they have a survey extension, It's a poll extension really, and we've extended that capability to really make it into a true survey where you can have multiple questions, different types of questions, and whether you're running a comms campaign or an HR campaign, whether it's something about how'd you like the office party, or something about what benefits would you like to have. So you can have an extension like this that asks multiple questions. It can be a closed or open survey. And for example, here, going back to the homepage, you will see that the extension is here. And essentially, you can go in. There's also capabilities to look at analytics. There's a special role that's designed for users to gauge a specific moderation role for analytics, for people to check out analytics on that specific survey. Like here. Apologies about the delay. So here, for example, you can see analytics of the questions. If I go back, I want to update my answer. So you can have multiple choice or multiple options per choice, free-form questions. Once I submit, I can see analytics from here. And you can also export data as well to PDF, feed it to your AI to analyze. And there's a lot more cool functionalities here. You can expiration dates. You also have a global dashboard where you can see all the surveys launched across your entire platform or across all the sites with all the KPIs and engagement numbers per survey. Again, really nice and exciting way to gain insights, gain user feedback directly in Loom Apps, driving more engagement within the product and having analytics directly within the Loom Apps platform. And by the way, we have this. Those of you who are on Loom Apps is the Hive. You know what the Hive is. You can, if you go to the Hive, we have a partner space here, ADC. You just search for ADC on your search. You'll go to our partner page, and then simply here, you can go and take the survey on our partner page, and tell us if you watched the ADC live. Tell us how you liked it. Tell us what interests you. What kind of things you like us to talk about. Maybe you want to be a guest on the show, and tell us about your experience. So either way, just come and interact. Try this extension out, and tell us more about what topics we can add to future ADC Live webisodes. So before we go into Randy, because I know Randy has a lot of interesting topics to discuss, I want to really focus on and kind of level set a basic definition of what is the difference between an enterprise community and a Loom Apps space / community, because that can be a little confusing, especially for folks who weren't actually hired to be ECMs, enterprise community managers, but folks who kind of fell into that role, either they're in comms or in HR or maybe in IT, and they're kind of led to lead an intranet, and they might not be aware of what is an enterprise community, right, or that language specifically. So an enterprise community really is a digital workplace or intranet that essentially connects users and to collaborate, to obtain information, and to kind of share their interests, right, and enhance collaboration between all the employees, essentially serving as a connectivity hub for the employees, and that's what's called an enterprise community. A Loom Apps or space, a Loom Apps space or a community, that's really a subset within the enterprise community, and a community or space Loom Apps is kind of like a place or an area where teams can collaborate individually about specific topics or business interests or projects or personal interests like water coolers, things like that. So two key terms. I just wanted to level set that for those who are not very familiar with about differences between enterprise community versus Loom Apps space community. Randy is going to talk about enterprise community effective practices to manage the employee suites. And before we get into that, I do want to show there's always been a question of what is the difference between Loom Apps spaces, communities, or content types. Which one do I choose? Right? That's always been kind of a classic question. So before we get to Randy, the last thing I just want to point out is how do we choose which one is which? So I put together this high-level breakdown that really highlights the key use cases between space, community, and a content type page. These are all very deep. They go a lot deeper. But at a high level, space is an area where you can have a dedicated navigation. So sometimes we see use cases where customers or their business partners come in, they want to have an area, their own navigation, controlled navigation, right, experience. So Space allows you to do it out of the box. You launch a Space, it's sort of dynamic on the homepage. It's consistent across all the Space sub pages, homepage, the events page, articles page, etc. They all have the same navigation, which has a nice, good, consistent look and feel. It's very simple, very out of the box. You don't have to worry about changing layouts or on any sub pages, and really you have control to update the homepage only. Right. Besides that, everything is more out of the box, self-serve, and you don't have to worry about people making edits or changes there. Communities, while you can also add navigations there, it's a little bit more trickier. It's not as consistent. You got to work a little bit more to do that consistently. You have both spaces and communities give you streamlined governance. You can govern them within the space, give folks autonomy to govern who can have access, who can have admin access, etc. But communities have a little more advantage because if somebody who is looking for a little more customization on the community sub pages, like on the post page or the events page, they can customize those to a degree. But again, that requires more effort, right? And I know not everybody in a busy environment, people just kind of want something out of the box. It's very simple, very clean and fast. So therefore, that's why spaces typically are better. And also, from a design control perspective, both communities as well as content type pages give you that flexibility. You can add, kind of customize the entire page, add as many widgets as you want to any page that you set up. The key benefit of content type page, there's obviously version control, so you can kind of go back in previous versions in the content type page. You also have ghostwriting capabilities within the content type page. These are usually leveraged by comms teams, top down, who want to write something on behalf of a leader. So typically we see news articles or news pages, news being created, global news by comms through the content type page experience because of this use case of ghostwriting capabilities. You can also add content expiration dates, workflows, and various individual access controls to specific pages. These are all kind of benefits of having content type pages, but again, it's always like we saw that GIF, right? It's always a give and take. It's always ease of use, streamlined capabilities versus a little bit more time and effort to design and govern and elaborate and really manage, right, maintain. So it really all depends on how many folks you have in your pocket to use versus how much effort you want to give to your users. It's always a balance and a trade-off. But that's at a high level and overview between these three. A lot more to talk about here, a lot more images.
Yeah.
We don't have.
Yeah.
Ivo, go ahead.
Document storage in Spaces too. The document storage, so PDFs, PPTs, and so on. That is also available in Spaces.
Yes, that's a very good point. That's something that's in Spaces which you do not get elsewhere. So, very good point. So, with that in mind, I want to throw it off. So, we have a very special guest, Randy, here, and he's, in my opinion, Randy's one of the leading enterprise community manager leads. I've seen Randy in action, and he's really here to tell us, his magic. So, Randy, without further ado, I know I've been waiting. I'll throw it over to you.
Hi, thank you, Misha. Appreciate it. I'm Randy Bell. I am currently running their community internally for Intuit's expert network. I've got about 25 years plus driving. I would say it's beyond community. Really, I was focused on innovation and employee experiences, customer experiences, and driving efficiencies through organizations as a consultant and internally. I have been traditionally vendor agnostic, and I say that as I would say I'm a 4-year veteran of LoomApps now. Prior to that, I spent many years on SharePoint. I've implemented, big ECM like Documentum and LiveLink products. So Yammer for communities, Facebook Workplace, but and Jive back in the day before it became part of LoomApps and part of Khoros. So loving LoomApps, just prefacing that because of the Swiss Army knife capability, or I would say like the Toyota truck capability. It can do a lot of things good. It's not necessarily the big heavyweight for ECM or the big heavyweight for community, but it can carry a pretty big load. So, and I would say at the end, just to describe my approach to all the work that I do, I typically just get obsessed with my customer. So, whoever my customer, whether it's an actual customer or the employee or a partner, I get obsessed with what the requirements are, and how we can actually drive improvement based on those requirements.
And tell us about this quote, Randy. It's
so I was binging Futurama a while back, a long time ago, and I just remember at the end of this one episode where Bender, who's the robot, he's floating around for a millennia, and he reaches the end of the universe, and he finally meets God, and he asks God, like, how do you keep the masses happy, and how do you keep them engaged? And God just said to him, when you do things right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. And Bender was just stupefied, and I started thinking about, like, what does that really mean? And it's really the idea that the best kind of help is often subtle and unacknowledged. So when you think of community management and managing intranets, you've got teams that are managing content, moderating, making sure the UX is great. There's always tons of small things going on behind the scenes to improve that experience, but typically it's so subtle that folks don't even understand it's going on, and it's unacknowledged, but they just enjoy the fruits of that labor. So
very nice. It's, and how many people need to kind of work to get, make things so simple? I mean, it's a lot of time to make things seem so seamless, right? That people don't even know that you did anything, right? How much of an effort is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So from a cost saver to a cost center to a cost saver, I know, Randy, you always say cost center typically, and this is your wording, but I don't know where what your sources, but I really always love how you're saying this, because it is typically very, very true that traditional intranets are perceived as cost savers or cost centers. And like this is going to cost you something, maybe a little bit or a lot, but it's going to cost you something. And
yeah. So look,
yeah,
the way I look at it, so my clients back in the day when I worked at Accenture and Deloitte and had a small firm for many years, if you came in to do an intranet project, it would typically be funded by marketing or HR, and then sometimes it would be funded by IT, but I would always see it kind of go through the admin or ops kind of roles. And the business case for the intranet was always very difficult, because folks were always trying to say, well, I'm going to spend this money. How am I going to get this back? Like, what benefit am I going to show? Whereas when I looked at other roles that I've supported, so I've done a lot of contact center work over the years, specifically focused on knowledge management, content availability, and community. Whether it's the inbound sales or outbound sales or inbound support or web self-service type capability, it was much easier to demonstrate through hard metrics like, hey, I'm going to save you money, and here's how this new tool, this community tool, or this new content engine is going to save money based on web self-service. It's going to save money based on reduced average handle time, maybe quicker or faster first contact resolution, or reduced escalations. And all of those in a contact center environment have very specific metrics. They're being tracked every second. So being able to say, hey, we might, in the big kahuna, which is, customer sat or TNPS, those can also be, kind of lighter attributes, because there's so many different things that can happen that can influence your TNPS score. But depending on how you're measuring, you can actually show the incremental ads or benefits that you're showing through better experiences for your customers through your support channels.
So here, traditionally, a cost center. I think of a cost center, right, as like an old legacy internet, which really, I think there's a reason why SharePoint was part of Microsoft Suite, but that's kind of bundled in it's not really seen as a cost center because it's kind of part of our overall cost, because it really, that's what they thought about it, because it's kind of there as an add-on. It's rarely, and folks kind of use it mostly for just, top down, and people, it's always like it's always a pain to maintain, and folks don't really always know how to use it properly, or they don't want to go there. And so when it's not part of that bundle, and it's not done right, there's always this risk of it being, the cost is rarely being justified by leadership, and there's always like it seems like more of a nice to have than a must have, and it's always under constant, watch, radar, and scrutiny, like, are we spending too much or not, right? And that's really when it's sucking up money, the value is not shown and being justified. When there is a cost center, right, it's the opposite thing. So, and you have this, so maybe like, if you can like talk a little bit more about like driving value, right, and what that means, and how to get good grace from leadership, and how to get folks, like how to get people engaged more, what that means to and governing content, or like what makes that transition possible.
Yeah, so I can give you an example from years back when we were using SharePoint, which was moving from 480 global intranets into one global intranet for an organization I worked at, and this was supporting 80,000 employees globally. The biggest thing there was it was a communications intranet, right? So you're trying to get everybody to feel like they work at one company. So obviously, if an organization has 480 intranets, they've acquired a lot of companies and they've allowed sprawl to happen. So part of that product that I was managing was to make one global intranet that would then be able to communicate and cascade different communications. Now, knowing SharePoint back then and knowing LUMAPS now, LUMAPS is so much easier to manage that type of an environment, especially with the distributed publishing capabilities. But I would say the value that I got out of it wasn't that we minimized 480 down to 1. It was more about like, well, okay, so now it's cool. I can find the content for my country, for my division, for my business unit. That's great, but it was finding that business value. And for us, beyond just doing the initial migration, getting everybody on one platform, after that, it was about, well, how are we going to find value? And for me, I targeted sales roles. This organization was a brokering firm, so they sold insurance brokerage at mass scale. So like when you wonder who insures a mega yacht, for example, like your Bezos $200 million mega yacht, or who insures a new tower going up in New York City, it's typically these broking firms working with a ton of other broking firms. Or who insures some of these new Walmarts that are going up, and manages those plans across a number of different investors to make that plan. It was a company like my old employer, and the problem is you had a lot of sales folks that could have different sales accounts globally, but they didn't necessarily all know who owned those accounts. So, Misha, you could be trying to drum up some work at Walmart, not knowing that there's a partner in the United States on the West Coast that already had this account locked in with one of the, somebody else in the C-suite. So, trying to find value in that space was more around like account and expertise finding. So integrating different capabilities around account management so that you could quickly find out who owns the account so you can collaborate, so that you can turn around and work on that account. And then we'd integrate some community in that so we can get them to work together. Now, flip that. In my current environment, it's more of a contact center environment with really high-end knowledge workers. So getting the right knowledge to those workers at the right time can save lots of money, because that's contact center metrics. You're talking about average handle time, TNPS, first contact resolution, lead reduction, and in some cases it could be down to attrition. If in our case, our workforce is a hard workforce to source because it's a very knowledge intensive, credentialed space like CPAs, enrolled agents. So if you can find out, give them the tools they need to collaborate, to find the information they need based on role, which is what we've done. We've got a lot of role-based communities, and then find ways to make them stay engaged, leveraging gamification providing information, content, communications that they need to do their job. And then, really understanding that role is how you get to that point. You understand the things that they need to be functional. Obviously, every workforce has tools available to them to help them do their job daily. And you don't necessarily want to add on to that pile with way more tools, but figuring out where, areas where you can reduce some of the tools, maybe migrate them into single source so that your tool is the one that they're going to for different activities. So.
And this really takes us. This really takes us. I know about this slide, right? And how do you find the right balance and really make sure that folks know, come in and really just produce and create that knowledge, right? And continue constant, because a lot of folks are having difficulty, right, with actually creating that experience where people come in and into the platform, right, and constantly add knowledge into the platform and come back, and somebody comes back and finds that knowledge. So people are sometimes having issues with that. How do you recommend that folks watching who are ECMs or to be ECMs to really keep that engagement going and to incentivize people, or what balance is there, like a magic formula or a balance of things, or how do you do it?
So I know you're sharing the pro tips page. So I think the way I look at that balance is finding content or experiences that are sticky for that role. So what would drive them to the site? Is it news or role-based information that they need in order to do their job? Is it news or information or micro-learning that might support them to learn and grow to do their job? Is it actual information that's required to do their role, to execute their role, like find information that can support their role as, a customer support rep or as an accountant or as a salesperson, things like that. So from my perspective, when I say roles here as a pro tip, that's really looking at the personas. So if you have a persona of a salesperson or a knowledge worker, support person, different kind of line roles, create those personas, build them out, understand all of the tools, content, experiences they need to be efficient and effective in their role. Drive those requirements, like this is what they need, and then map them to what you can provide within your capability tool set, which your tool set could be that you manage LoomApps and you have the ability to do distributed publishing. You have the ability to create amazing user experiences. You have some bolt-ons that you can put on for gamification so that you can run contests or quizzes or leaderboards to really drive some excitement around some of the behaviors you're wanting to see when they're in your tool. So, and at the end of the day, working backwards, what are the outcomes that you want? If you can't have a measure, if there's not a measurement for improvement, it's going to be very difficult to sell that. And I know, like on the intranet side, it's super hard. It's even harder on the knowledge management side, because that's kind of my sweet spot, which is trying to say you're going to save this much money or make this much money based on having access to information is typically a hard play. If you can find the right roles where there's a lot more hard data, that's why sales and support roles are always usually pretty easy, low-hanging fruit for being able to drive that business outcome. Then you can apply digital to those roles, whether it's through communities of practice, through the right types of content that they need, including micro-learning, whether it's through providing that information that's article-based, that's communications, announcements, getting them to engaged about their role, about the company, et cetera. I think those are all good things that you can do to help drive that stickiness.
Well, that's really useful. I mean, and obviously it sounds like it is a lot of work. I know how much time you spend behind the scenes, even behind the scenes, and just a small fraction of it. Any last words about even some words of encouragement, because it is, especially folks who are really struggling with this, about about succeeding, or about what they can do.
So the way I typically look at community growth is being organic. So you've got to provide a spark so that the flame will grow, and sometimes that spark is moderating those communities, adding those conversation starters, working with the moderators that own those communities and saying, hey, here's some tips, here's some proven practices to help you drive, some collaboration here. We know that, a vast majority of folks in a community, even if it's a role-based community around a team or a project, most of them are lurkers. We know that. Like a lot of us on this call are probably lurkers ourselves in different social channels. But figuring out ways to engage those folks, that's, gamification is one tool. Giving call outs to folks helps, especially when you're thinking about, like if somebody does behave in a way that you want them to in a community, really calling them out and, highlighting that person, saying, hey, great comment, love this feedback, etc. We're all humans, so getting encouragement always helps. But at the end of the day, it's really understand what the requirements are for the role. If you make that community and that experience, if that has some of those requirements that they need something from there to do their job effectively, efficiently, or even grow themselves, whether it's micro learning or videos that you want to store, that's how you'll get people to become return offenders and keep coming back to your tool. And I always look at it as organic. So, we created some communities where if you look at it for the first couple months, people are like, oh, look at the data. There's not that many unique visitors and views. And I'm like, it's coming. It takes time for it to grow. It's like a snowball going downhill. So, we'll start deploying some of these different techniques, but I don't expect a big bang where all of a sudden everybody just piles on and then it's going to just taper off. I'd rather have a slow growth and then you get to critical mass and then there's a lot of groundswell.
Thank you so much, Randy. I really enjoyed you joining here. So what's next? Just a couple of so we have a few more exciting episodes coming up on ADC Live. First, we have LumApps Analytics Deep Dive with Misha and Ivo. We're going to go through a 3-tier analytics deep dive, talking about first what's available out of the box. LumApps has done a lot of really nice improvements in the past few releases since the beginning of this year, which I'm really excited to show you guys. Then we're also going to go what can be extended through GTM, Tag Manager, and GA4. And then also we'll go deeper with analytics. The third tier will be about Data Lake. We'll talk about what's available in Data Lake. Ivo will educate us about that as well. We'll present some customer use cases that we've seen and how those can be resolved. And on August 8th, we also have a very exciting event about driving culture and bringing cross-functional engagement with Paul Kalenda. I'm very excited about this one as well, because here Paul's going to talk about how they've really driven this, used it, LumApps and AI to really drive engagement from all different leaders and the people in different parts of the org, from top and down, really all across, all around. And he's going to talk about that and how that really helped drive culture and improve culture internally in their enterprise. So with that in mind, really thank you all for joining, and we will see you next time.